Hello everyone, you've conquered two papers, accounts and law already, and you're left with only one paper, taxation. Once you finish taxation, you would have aced group 1. Now, irrespective of how law and accounts have gone, put it aside. Do not spend time checking your MCQ answers with YouTube videos. Put all that curiosity to rest. Don't spend any time and energy on what's gone. Don't allocate any mind space to the papers which are over. Your entire focus this point onwards has to be on what's lying ahead. Because I'm very sure you'll agree with me, what's gone is not in your control. But what is in your control is how you spend the next 1.5 days and how you make your taxation paper shine. Right guys, so let's spend all our time and energy with full positivity and optimism on our upcoming paper, taxation. Now when it comes to taxation, listen to a few tips that I have for you. See, do not make the mistakes that your seniors did. The biggest mistake that happens is when you have 1.5 days to revise the whole taxation. Yes, I don't deny, it's a little difficult to revise your whole paper in these 1.5 days. But the fact that it is difficult to revise in 1.5 days, don't let that overwhelm you. At least whatever is possible, at least that we will try to do, guys. Yes, when we finish these 1.5 days, we should feel like, yes, beyond this it was not possible. Right guys, so do not spend time and energy in these 1.5 days getting nervous, getting overwhelmed. You will feel nervous, it is natural in here and there. You will feel a little anxious. Whenever you feel anxious, remind yourself that you're doing the best that is possible, and that itself is sufficient for now. Alright, in these 1.5 days, I would suggest no last minute revision videos, no marathon videos. It's you and your book. You've already prepared so much and you've kept right. So revise that, run through all of that. In these 1.5 days, no new concepts. In these 1.5 days, whatever you've prepared and kept, you will feel you've forgotten a little bit here and there. You may feel, ma'am, I forgot everything. You may feel like that. It is normal. Know that it's not just you who's feeling like that. Everybody is feeling like that. It's normal. So how do you handle that? You see, in these 1.5 days, you're not going to learn something that you want to remember for the rest of your life. You're going to learn something only because you want to remember it for the next 1.5 days. So just run through the provisions, glance through the provisions. You've already learned everything and kept. You just have to remind yourself. You just have to refresh your memory. Understanding? So just glance through, because see what happens if you let's say you prepared for PGBP very well in the past, okay, but let's say you did not get time to do that chapter in these 1.5 days. If that happens and if you get a question from this chapter in the examination, you will feel a little underconfident in those 3 hours, and that is not something that we want. So in these 1.5 days, we have to plan in such a way that each chapter, at least we've flipped through the pages. Each chapter, at least we've reminded ourselves of all the concepts. That itself will give us a good boost. Alright everybody, so with that in my mind, I've prepared this whole 1.5 days strategy for you. Please ensure that you stick to the time schedule. Then let's say I've allocated 2 hours for PGBP. If you're not able to finish, it's time to move on. You're getting my point? Do not stay stuck in one particular chapter, because we are not targeting 100% accuracy in these 1.5 days. The smarter way to prepare would be doing 80% nicely in these 1.5 days, and 20% compromising a little bit would be okay. Alright, so let's begin. Let's kill it. Let's do really well in our tax paper. So coming to the strategy, what I've thought is you can start off this evening when you come back from law. You can start off with the easy chapters. See, yes, you'll be tired this evening, but you cannot waste this evening because you have a solid 4-5 hours. So had I been in your place, I would have come back from law this evening and I would have done easy chapters but important chapters. Your basic concepts wherein your tax rate, surcharge, marginal relief, your rebate. And do you remember in rebate there is a provision where 115 BSE, even if income is more than 7 lakh, you still get rebate in some cases. Be careful about that. Alright. And residential status. In residential status, deemed resident concept, very important. Interest, royalty, FTS, highly probable from your examination point of view. So first finish off your basic concepts chapter, residential status discussion, and agricultural income. In agricultural income, remember to do partial integration method well. Then I've written the time slots as well over here. Then and I'll share this file in my Telegram channel as well. So once you're done with this, then you can finish off salaries head. Please finish one big head today. Alright, either salaries or PGPP or capital gains. Finish one big head today, so that when you wake up tomorrow, you feel a sense of accomplishment that yes, a little bit is already done. Understanding. So you finish off the salaries head. Now how are you going to finish the salaries head? I've allocated 2 hours. You might be feeling right now, ma'am, it's impossible to finish salaries in 2 chapters. I'll tell you how to do. You will break the 2 hours into, let's say, 1.5 hours and half an hour. You'll break the 2 hours. In that 1.5 hours, you will revise the provisions. When I say revise the provisions, you will glance through all the provisions which you've learnt and kept. Whichever material you followed earlier, stick to that same material, just glance through the provisions first. The last half an hour or 45 minutes, whatever, spend that on seeing the questions which you have marked and kept. Don't try to solve all of them that you've marked and kept. Have a look at them and solve maybe one question or 2 questions in each chapter. Understanding. So that's how you will break your 2 hours. If you do it that way, 2 hours should be sufficient for you to finish off salaries chapter. Then after this set off chapter and clubbing of income, highly probable, especially for set off, there is an ICI clarification which came very recently. On this, I've also put up a video on YouTube. Ensure you see this if you've not seen it. It is extremely important. Like I would say category A important. Like I would say it's important. Understanding this clarification about what can be set off, what cannot be set off relating to loss from house property. Okay, so these 2 chapters you will finish off, and let's say you finish off all of this evening as well, this evening itself. Then tomorrow you have the whole of day, and listen, one whole day is not less, okay? So you will start off in the morning with GST, alright? I've allocated 6 to 2, around 8 hours for GST, which according to me should be sufficient. I even spoke to another faculty and he said that 6 to 2 should be sufficient for you to revise your whole GST, alright? And then after that, let's say you have your lunch, and then after lunch you start again with income tax. Now you'll start off with PGBP. Again the same thing, I've allocated 2 hours for PGBP in the same manner. 1.5 hours to run through your classroom notes, to run through the provisions, to revise the theory which you've learned, to refresh your memory button. And then after that, you spend half an hour to see the questions which you've marked, to work out 1 or 2 questions, and you close. In PGBP, ensure you do presumptive taxation really well. Depreciation, 48.2, remember 48.2, assessee is incurring an expense which is excess or unreasonable, so you will disallow the excess. Then 43B, you have to make payment within 139 due date, those expenses. And oh yes, 40B is highly probable from your upcoming examination point of view. 40B is regarding partner salary and partner's interest. So after finishing this big head, you can finish off a small head, IFHP. Please do not skip this chapter, you just don't know. Alright, so IFHP, pre-construction interest, do really well. And in IFHP, do that concept also. You have that adjustment, right, where part of the year the property is let out, part of the year the property is self-occupied. So you treat as if it is fully let out, that adjustment. Okay, then after this you can finish off your capital gains head. Again, for all these big heads, I've allocated 2 hours, alright. In capital gains, your focus area has to be slum sale, section 54 series, compulsory acquisition, section 50C, very important, and your tax computation sections, 111A, 112 and 112. Then after this, you can have your dinner, take a small break, and then start off with IFOS. In IFOS, your major focus areas have to be gift and dividend, and then chapter 6A. So I've planned it in such a way that before dinner you're done with everything heavy and big. So after dinner, when you're tired, you have only IFOS and chapter 6A left. In chapter 6A, the sections which I've chosen that you have to specifically finish, section 80C, 80D, 80TTA and 80TTB, 80G donations, 80CCD, 80JJAA, 80QQB and 80RRB. Okay, so with this you're done with the whole of tomorrow, and then the D day, the exam day. So on this day, in the morning when you wake up, you will be very content because you've completed everything. Only one thing is left, which is TDS, TCS, Advanced Tax and Assessment Procedures, the part which I'm very sure most of you are skipping or thinking of skipping. But I never suggest to skip this, because yes, you do get a standalone 4-5 marks question from here. But in addition to this, TDS and TCS will affect your case study based MCQs also. It will affect your total income question also. TDS credit, you'll have to gross up. So you need to know the percentages. So I generally suggest students not to skip this. So that is why the day of the exam, that morning, I've allocated for TDS, TCS, Advanced Tax and Assessment Procedures. In TDS, TCS, please pay extreme attention on section 194R, 194H, I, J, A, C, 194M, 194DA, 194IB. In Advanced Tax, 234B, In assessment procedures, even if you don't have time to finish everything else, these 4 concepts, just these 4 concepts guys, won't take you more than half an hour. Okay, can I add just one more? So totally 5 concepts. Concept number 1, who should file ITR? Concept number 2, when should you file ITR? Concept number 3, verification of ITR. Concept number 4, updated return. And concept number 5, what are the consequences? What if you file your ITR late? Okay. So this can be finished off in 3 hours on the day of the exam that morning. Once you're done with this, you spend just, let's say, 2 more hours on DT. In these 2 hours, 115 BAC, AMT, then marked total income questions, whatever you've marked and kept, and the recent RTP and MTP. With this, how much ever is done, be content and close your DT paper, and then come to GST, last 2 hours to GST, whatever is pending, whatever is left over, you finish that off. Alright, and then I really insist, please close your books at 1 p.m. Because see, what happens is, if you are studying till last minute for tax paper, see, I don't say close your books at 1 p.m. for law paper. For theory papers, I will not say. But for a taxation paper, tax paper is a very, what do I say? It's a very logical paper. At the same time, it's also a very, it's a little boggling paper. All right, it's a mind-boggling paper. So that is why when it comes to tax, okay, if you're studying till the last minute, and then if you walk into the exam hall, you're walking in the exam hall stressed. Alright, and then it will take you time to calm yourself down, and then you will be in a real hurry. So your starting itself will be a little affected. So instead, ensure that you close your books at 1 p.m. Be content with whatever you've done. Alright, calm yourself and have nice positive thoughts, and with a calm mind walk into the examination hall. That itself will make so much of a difference, because when you start with a calm mind, alright, when you start with a positive mindset, the whole 3 hours goes very smoothly. Alright, so ensure that you follow this schedule, and out of all of these chapters, for multiple chapters I've put up revision videos on my YouTube channel. Now, when should you rely on those YouTube videos? Only if self-study is not happening. Like, let's say, ma'am, TDS is just not happening on my own. I need some guidance. That is where you watch the video. Otherwise, nothing better than self-study in these 1.5 days. Alright, and before I close, just some last minute tips. In these 1.5 days, no new concepts. There will be n number of YouTube videos. There will be so much content on Telegram. Please know what to consume and how much to consume. Do not try to consume everything. No new concept in these 1.5 days. Ensure you sleep well, guys, because for taxation paper, you do not want to make silly mistakes in those 3 hours. So ensure you're catching a minimum of 5.5 hours of sleep every day. Do not think that I will, stay up all night and I will study all night. After taxation paper, I will come home and sleep all I want. Don't have that mindset at all. It will not work out, because you cannot walk into the examination hall like a zombie. Right, guys, so ensure you sleep minimum of 5.5 hours, and do not be unnecessarily tensed about this paper. Even if there are a lot of conversations around this paper, try to stay away from conversations. Believe that this paper is going to be your best out of 3 papers in this group. All right, getting my point? So believe it from the bottom of your heart that this paper is going to go really, really well. Believe it, and with that mindset you start preparation. After 1 p.m. slow down. I've already told you, this tip is something which my faculty used to give me when I was doing my CA final, alright. At that time I remember this, there was, our faculties used to tell us this, and this tip has died down over the years. They used to tell us, the last 1 hour, you don't keep running around. The last 1 hour, you bring back your mindset into, a calm zone. Only then those 3 hours go smoothly. So the same tip which they gave us, I am passing on to you over here. And no last minute revisions and marathons, I've told you this as well. And lastly, even for law paper, in my Telegram channel, I was sending these last minute tips, now and then in those 1.5 days. Like, a small concept, like for example, private placement, remember to see this. Or let's say in general clauses chapter, remember to see document definition. So I had given these tips here and there, like, who can be debenture trustee, who cannot be debenture trustee. So little tips and tricks I had kept sending in my Telegram channel. So I'll be doing the same thing for DT as well. Students said it was really, really helpful for law. So I'm planning to do the same thing for DT as well. So join my Telegram channel so that you can take benefit of that. Alright, so all the very best guys. Go and rock your tax paper and do it in the nicest way that you can. Alright, all the best. Bye-bye.